Right. So in this class, we have a small topic left to cover, that is the regulation of blood glucose. What is hyperglycemia, what is hypoglycemia, and what is glucose tolerance test. We'll do that. And this chapter of carbohydrates will be over. Now, first of all, coming to regulation of glucose, regulation means control of glucose. Regulation of glucose. Now, glucose levels are maintained at a very narrow limit, within very narrow limits inside your body, but they are regulated very efficiently so that there's a constant supply of glucose to your brain. Now, your brain only gets energy in the form of glucose. The main source of energy or the main source of nutrition for your brain is glucose. So if there are fluctuation in a person's glucose level, generally that might lead to brain damage, or there might be fluctuation in consciousness. That is why your body will try its highest to maintain that same level of glucose as much as possible, and it will try to avoid any fluctuations that might occur because of various reasons. Now, to a certain extent, to maintain these energy demands, it might also, your body might utilize ketone body sometimes, or your brain might utilize ketone body sometimes, but it is not sustainable. Now, in any case, glucose normally, whenever you consume food, let us suppose today morning you ate idli, okay, or any food for that matter, does not matter only if you ate idli, whatever you ate, that meal will contain glucose. This glucose is being broken down. By the time it reaches your gut, it reaches your small intestines. By the time it reaches your intestine itself, a complex polysaccharide molecule of carbohydrate will be broken down into a monosaccharidic unit. So essentially, from a complex carbohydrate, you will end up getting glucose molecules, which are monosaccharidic units. Those glucose molecules are absorbed inside your intestines, and from your intestines they will enter blood. Essentially, they will enter your portal venous system, and from your portal venous system they are able to enter your liver. That is how it normally goes. If there is a spike in the level of glucose in the person's blood, normally what is the level of glucose that a person should have in their blood? Random blood glucose. What is the normal level of GRBS?
One,
I wasn't able to hear you.
80 to 140.
140.
Yes, sir.
पक्का? और प्री डायबिटिक में नहीं जाते? एक बार चेक करो. I am
Okay, sir.
talking about GRBS. If you randomly check a person's blood glucose level, so we have normal, there is pre-diabetic. Now again, this value is also varying. It is not that she's completely wrong when she told 140. Generally, for most scenarios, we will take somewhere in between 70 to 130, 120 के around लेते. 130, 140, 150 are considered pre-diabetic. Nowadays, a lot of people are having, their blood sugar level even at 140, and still that is also considered somewhat normal. But definitely, if a patient's blood glucose level is over 200. By the way, what is the units of glucose that we are measuring?
mg by dl.
Yes, milligrams by deciliter. Let me put it 130. Okay. So over 130 up to 199 will be pre-diabetic. 131 to 199 will be pre-diabetic. And this will be diabetic patients who have over 200 milligrams per deciliter of glucose. Now, whenever glucose is absorbed inside your body and there is a spike in the level of glucose in your blood, insulin is released from your pancreas. Insulin essentially will help in absorption of glucose by cells. So what does it do exactly? Let us suppose this is a random cell inside your body. Okay, it will have an insulin receptor on its surface. Okay, in insulin molecule, whenever there is an increase in blood sugar level, these insulin molecules will come and stimulate this receptor. So the insulin molecule will come and attach to the receptor. As a result, what happens is a signal is sent inside the cell, and that signal is being sent to the nucleus. Nucleus in turn will cause the release of a special type of glucose receptor. Let us suppose I call this GLUT receptor. Okay. That GLUT receptor comes onto the surface of the cell, and through that GLUT receptor, what happens is glucose is able to enter inside your cell. That is how the mechanism of glucose absorption occurs. So it starts with insulin. Technically, it starts with glucose level itself. If glucose level in your blood increases, insulin level in your body increases, because islets of Langerhans, your pancreas will start producing more glucose, more insulin. As a result, these insulin molecules will go to the targeted cells. They will they will essentially cause GLUT receptor to come to the surface, and that GLUT receptor essentially will be it will be able to it will be able to allow that glucose molecule inside the cell altogether, so that glucose can be used for various metabolic processes. Now there is another enzyme which is working in the exact opposite manner as insulin, which is also produced by pancreas. Now pancreatic beta cells will produce insulin, whereas pancreatic alpha cells will produce a hormone called glucagon. Glucagon will have a lot of functions which are opposite to insulin. So glucagon will increase blood sugar levels, and glucagon is generally released when there is low blood sugar levels. Let us suppose in a patient's blood the amount of blood glucose is slightly low. In those patients, their liver will become very active, and they will start producing a lot of glucagon. As a result, whatever depleted amount of glucose is not, which is absent from your blood, that will be replenished back. Okay, that is how a delicate balance is maintained between the amount of glucose in your blood through insulin and glucagon. There are other factors as well, but these two play a major role. Okay, now coming to other factors that will maintain blood sugar levels. For example, there are major factors influencing entry of absorption or entry of glucose, let's suppose, rather than entry of, right, entry of glucose. So इसमें क्या आता, absorption of glucose from intestines. What is the rate of absorption of glucose absorb, what is the rate of glucose being absorbed in your body? What is the level of glycogenolysis, how easily and how much glycogen is being broken down in the absence of glucose? What is the scenario of gluconeogenesis, are new glucose molecules being produced? And are there any hyperglycemic hormones like glucagon or steroids being released into your body, or which are being used inside a patient from outside? Ab bahar se there is steroids. So all of these will have some effect on blood sugar. Then there are factors that will lead to decrease in blood sugar. Okay. Decrease in blood sugar, the most obvious reason is by usage by the cell. Okay. Once a cell is running out of glucose, it will not be able to perform normally. So for a cell to now survive properly, it will have to continuously keep using glucose, and it will have to continuously churn out metabolic waste and all of that. Okay. Then conversion of glucose into fat, lipogenesis. Over time, what happens is excessive carbon that you consume, essentially excessive carbohydrates or whatever you take, they will start getting accumulated, and as a result what will happen is they will be converted into fat and they'll be stored in adipose tissue, so that for future use those adipose tissue deposits can be broken down and they can be used for energy. Other factors that will lead to depletion of glucose is glycogen synthesis. If glycogen is being synthesized, generally it will be synthesized from glucose. You will take a lot of glucose and you will synthesize glycogen from it. So glycogenesis is the opposite of what we want in this scenario. If a patient has low amount of blood sugar, you don't want glycogenesis occurring. Okay, or at least glycogenesis should be slowed down to a certain extent so that their blood sugar level has been stabilized. And insulin also plays a very important role in this. Now, postprandially, after a person has eaten for about 2 to 2.5 hours, after eating, after putting the last morsel of food in your mouth, for about 2 to 2.5 hours, that blood glucose level will be very very close to fasting levels initially, because it will take some time for that food to get digested, for that food to reach intestines, and from there to actually go into your blood. So it will take a little bit of time. But essentially what happens is, over time, once that food has been digested and as much glucose that you can take out of that glucose, out of that food that you have eaten, has been harvested. Now in this scenario, what your body does is, you will not feel hungry immediately after 1, 2.5, or 2 hours. You will not immediately feel hungry. At that point, what will happen is glycogenolysis occurs. So initially for 2.5 hours, your food is making sure that you survive. After that, this glycogenolysis will start occurring. Glycogen will be broken down, and as a result, that glycogen will convert into glucose, which is slowly going into your blood and stabilizing the level. This will go on for about 3 more hours. Now, if you generally observe, after one proper meal, it will take you about 6 to 8 hours for you to start developing hunger. Okay, now again, depends on you how often you eat and what are your own eating habits. But in general, after 6 to 8 hours of consuming one major meal, whether it is a breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you will generally have a feeling of hunger. Okay, that is because the amount of blood sugar level that is present in your blood has significantly dipped down, and you need to replenish them. Okay. Those are some of the main mechanisms through which blood sugar is being controlled in your body. Did you all understand that mechanism?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you will come across multiple hormones. The main hormones that you have to remember is insulin, glucagon, and to a certain extent, even this thing, cortisol. All of these will have certain effects on the amount of glucose present inside the patient's blood. Cortisol is a hyperglycemic hormone. It will increase blood sugar. It will reduce amino acid present, release of amino acids from the muscles. It will also increase gluconeogenesis. So it will do the opposite of what you're trying to do. Okay. Um, sorry, it will induce gluconeogenesis. It will start producing more amount of glucose. You can also see growth hormone will have a little bit of effect, not profound, but it does have a little bit of effect. Growth hormone, whenever it is released, it will decrease the rate of glycolysis, and it will increase blood sugar levels. Okay, so that they are used. Now, just to put it that way. Okay, so those are some mechanisms through which glucose is being regulated inside your body. As I told you earlier, hyperglycemia is above any normal limit, hypoglycemia is under a normal limit. Now, coming to glucose tolerance test itself, when you are trying to test a patient's blood glucose level, one method of doing it, it is not used as much nowadays, but it is fairly accurate. Glucose tolerance test. So, what you do is you ask the patient to fast overnight. You will ask them to not eat anything overnight, and at 8 a.m. you will collect some samples. You will collect a sample of blood, and you will collect a sample of urine from the patient's body. Okay, you will ask them to urinate in a particular cup, and you will take a little bit, draw a little bit of blood from that patient. Okay, at that point, what you do is you will give a dose of glucose to the patient. Now, generally, this dose of glucose will contain about 75 grams of anhydrous glucose. Okay, this 75 grams of anhydrous glucose is mixed with about 250 to 300 ml of water. It's pretty sweet, and you give that to a patient. Okay, irrespective of the body weight, generally this much amount is given. If you are giving it to a child, then you will adjust the dose to 1.75 kg per body weight. Okay, 1.75 gram per body weight, gram of sugar per body weight, per kg body weight, you can put it that way as well. Okay. And essentially what you are doing is you are seeing the patient's response over time, what happens to their level of blood. So at timed intervals for every 30 minutes or so, you will keep withdrawing a little bit of blood and you will test that blood of the patient. Okay. So essentially आप क्या कर रहे हैं, after you have given a sugar load to the patient, generally patients who have diabetes, they will not be able to handle a lot of glucose in their blood suddenly. So their body will go erratic, there'll be a lot of problems. In general, patients who are healthy, even if you give them a large dose of glucose initially, over a few hours, those levels should normalize. Okay, they will definitely come down one way or the other. If they are not coming down, it generally indicates that the patient has diabetes or pre-diabetic condition or something like that. Okay, so that is about regulation of glucose, and that completes our topic of carbohydrates. Any doubts?
No, sir.
No,
Okay,
sir.
hope all of you understood the topic. It's fairly easy topic. There are a couple of hormones that are controlling how glucose is being used.